"No, Robert, no, babe. Please don't do this to me." The frantic voice echoed through the 911 call at 5:39 a.m. on November 28, 2020. But what Heather Fernandez didn't know was that her own desperate pleas would become the key evidence that would eventually put her behind bars for murder.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I came into my room and my husband, I think he died. I think he's on the floor. I mean, I know he's on the floor. I think he's dead. No, Robert, no, babe, no. Please don't do this to me. No. Don't do this to me. No.
Heather Fernandez seemed to have it all. A bubbly third-grade teacher at McCormick Elementary School in Farmington, New Mexico, she had captured the heart of Robert Hoer, a former Navy nuclear reactor technician turned computer specialist. Their whirlwind romance had been nothing short of a fairy tale. They met in September 2019, and by September 2020, they were married at the VFW in Aztec, New Mexico. Robert told everyone that Heather was the love of his life. At 49, he had found happiness with this woman who brought joy not only to him, but also to her 3 children and grandchildren, whom he treated as his own. But behind the closed doors of their modest home on South Ivy Avenue, a different story was unfolding. Money was tight. Robert was unemployed, and the stress was mounting. Their tiny house was overcrowded. Heather was supporting one of her adult sons, his fiancée, and their 2 children. Arguments about finances, his unemployment, and even his relationship with his ex-wife had become routine. The facade of happiness they presented to the world was cracking under the pressure of reality. On the evening of November 28, 2020, Heather and Robert were at home together. According to Heather's account, Robert had been drinking and playing video games when he asked her to warm up a piece of pie in the kitchen. It seemed like an ordinary Saturday night request. But sometime between 3 and 4 a.m., a neighbor heard something that would haunt investigators for years. 2 adults arguing loudly in the small house on South Ivy Avenue. Suddenly, everything went quiet.
Ma'am, did you see what happened?
No.
2497.
Where's the blood coming from on him? On his chest?
And I fell asleep on the couch and I came in here and he was on the floor.
I came into my room and my husband. I think he died. I think he's on the floor. I mean, I know he's on the floor. I think he's dead. When first responders arrived 9 minutes after Heather's 911 call, they found Robert Hoer lying motionless on the bedroom floor, blood-stained. His chest and Heather appeared to be the picture of a devastated wife. She told officers that Robert had cut himself earlier in the evening with a steak knife, complaining that it hurts.
What he cut himself with?
He said one of the steak knives, but it couldn't have.
Okay, let's not go reaching around. I just don't want you to get cut, ma'am, in case it's sitting around here.
Say again?
I don't want you reaching around just in case you get cut, okay?
Not that I know of.
Was he laying here in bed and you moved him over off the ground?
And when I got up,
But something didn't add up. Why was there more blood on the bed than on the floor where Robert's body lay? And why wasn't there a single drop of blood anywhere else in the house if Robert had walked to the kitchen, washed the knife, and returned to the bedroom as Heather claimed? Crime scene technicians combed through the house with forensic precision, and what they discovered painted a very different picture than Heather's story. The evidence suggested that Robert had been stabbed on the bed, his body cleaned, and then moved to the floor. All the kitchen knives were exactly where they should be. None were missing. None showed signs of recent washing. When investigators questioned Heather more thoroughly, her story began to unravel like a poorly knitted sweater. First, she claimed Robert stabbed himself while she was warming pie around midnight. Then she changed the timeline, saying she didn't return to the bedroom until 3 a.m. She laughed nervously when asked why they didn't sleep together, claiming Robert wet the bed. Later, she suggested he might have cut himself with a razor or even overdosed on pills. But investigators knew something Heather didn't realize. Each lie was being carefully documented, and the physical evidence was telling a completely different story. When the autopsy report arrived days later, it shattered any remaining doubt about what had really happened that night. Robert had 3 devastating wounds to his chest. 2 had punctured his lungs, while the 3rd had severed his coronary artery. All 3 blows were forceful enough to penetrate his sternum, the hardest bone in the human chest. The medical examiner's findings were clear. Robert couldn't have inflicted these wounds on himself. The first blow alone would have been so debilitating that he wouldn't have been able to stab himself a second time, let alone a third. Yet somehow, according to Heather's impossible story, he had managed to stab himself 3 times, walk to the kitchen, wash the murder weapon, put it away, and return to the bedroom, all while leaving 0 blood trail. Despite the overwhelming evidence pointing to murder, the medical examiner listed Robert's manner of death as undetermined. This single decision meant prosecutors couldn't file murder charges. Heather walked free. For 4 long years, she continued teaching 3rd grade at McCormick Elementary School, just a stone's throw from the house where her husband had died. She even changed her Facebook relationship status from married to single. Perhaps she thought she had gotten away with the perfect crime, but investigators never forgot. Robert Hoer. By early 2025, cold case investigators and the district attorney's office had conducted a thorough review of all the evidence. Advanced forensic techniques had provided even more clarity about what happened that night. The blood spatter patterns, the wound trajectories, the impossible timeline, everything pointed to one inescapable conclusion. On April 1, 2025, 51-year-old Heather Fernandez was arrested at her workplace and charged with second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. "Put your hands right back together," the officer commanded as handcuffs clicked around her wrists. "What do I have a warrant for?" Heather asked, though somewhere deep down, she must have known this day would eventually come. For homicide. When given the opportunity to finally tell the truth about what happened to Robert, Heather's response was telling, "I'm going to need an attorney." As investigators explained that they knew what happened, they just didn't know why. Heather's composure began to crack. "I want to cry. I want to scream. I want to throw a fit. I'm scared," she admitted, perhaps revealing more genuine emotion than she had shown during her entire 911 call 4.5 years earlier. The teacher who had spent years educating children about right and wrong, who had built her life on the foundation of trust and respectability, now faced the consequences of what investigators believe was a carefully orchestrated murder. The woman who had played the grieving widow so convincingly that she had fooled first responders was finally being held accountable for Robert Hoer's brutal death. The case serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous predators hide behind the most innocent facades, and that no matter how long it takes, the truth has a way of surfacing, even when someone thinks they've buried it forever.